Good afternoon. My name is Tommy Allen, and welcome to my weekly update. Actually, today I'm not going to give you an update. Not really. I mean, it will sound like an update to some of you, but really what I'd like to do today is give you an invitation. And so what am I inviting you to, or what am I inviting you to do? And basically, the invitation is this: if you live in or around Kent, Washington, and you're watching this, I'd like to invite you to participate in the launch of an awesome new church that we're hoping to see happen in the fall, right? For the new church, we've already picked out a name as well. Get this: New Hope Presbyterian Church. How's it sound? Awesome, right? Now, some of you are thinking like, hey, that's the name of my church. You would be correct. That is your church. And basically, let me explain what I mean by you participating in a new church plant that actually is our church. And it's just this: in the fall, we're probably not going to be able to meet until the fall. And that's the best case scenario. And since we can't meet in a large group, or we can't really meet in corporate worship of any substantial size until at least the fall, maybe in the new year, we need to be thinking of something different. We need to be doing, there are basically two options of things we could be doing. First thing we could do is we could just sort of chill out, right? We could just do nothing, and we could just wait until things go back to normal and resume normal operations, right? Then we'll just watch, Samuel and I will record sermons, and you guys will watch sermons from your house, and we'll just all chill out and not really do much until we can just get back to the way things used to be. That's option one. Option two is basically this: we can use this time between now and whenever we are allowed to meet to basically prepare our church to launch in the same way that a new church plant would launch. And by doing that, we could be more outwardly faced, we can be more relevant, we could be a greater blessing to our community. And so here's the thing. Option one, just waiting until things go back to normal, that's a fantasy. I don't think I'm alone in thinking or believing that things are never going to go back to normal. And by that, I mean, when we come back, let's say we can come back in the fall. There are a lot of our members, some of our most gifted members, some of the members who we count on more than many, are older. And many of them have determined that we're not going to come back until there's a vaccine. There are other people who have autoimmune issues. They're not coming back to church until there's a vaccine either. Other people are just sort of like, well, sitting at home is pretty nice. Why would I go back? Either way, things are not going to be normal. And probably when and if we launch, unless we do things differently, the numbers are going to be a lot smaller. And so that makes option two actually, I think, a much better option. Acting like a church plant actually means we're preparing to use the people that are here to reach the maximum number of people in our community. Now, why do I say this? Why many of you are saying, Tommy, why are you talking about church planting? Well, those of you who know me, for one, I've been a church planter. Secondly, I'm currently the church planting coordinator for our whole presbytery. And the last thing, I've coached and trained and taught seminars, scores of church planters over the years. And so, in other words, I know a little bit about church planting. And it just seems like, by definition, it's the way that we can move forward and see the gospel thrive. In order to do that, church plants, by definition, they require clarity, they require shared purpose by the launch team, all of those things, and that's where you come in. So, for example, here are the simplified steps toward launching a church, right? I teach seminars that are days long. You're going to get it in about 20 seconds. So the first thing you need if you're going to launch a church, you need to identify a location. I'm standing in it. We have a location. Check. Second thing, you need to identify a committed launch team. Many of you watching, even now, I know, are getting excited saying, I want to be on that launch team. Check, we have a committed launch team. Even if only 20 of you show up, that's all you need. But we have a lot more than that. The bigger launch team you have, the more effective you will be. So identify a location, check. Committed launch team, check. Number 3, make sure launch team members are on the same page. Let me tell you number 4 first. Make sure everyone on the launch team has a job, a ministry that they're involved in. Last thing, you identify a launch date, which we would have to do in the future, and then boom, you launch. Now, where do things get a little dicey? They get dicey on step 3, where you make sure all the launch team members are on the same page. Now, when I planted a church, what I did was I started gathering committed launch team members, and every Sunday afternoon, I walked them through a curriculum to make sure that they knew what we were trying to do as a church, and that they were all in agreement with what we were trying to do in a church. And when they met other people, they could tell them what we were trying to do as a church. And so how do we get all of you, our actually very large committed launch team, on the same page? That's where Discover New Hope comes in. In fact, even before the pandemic hit, we were in talks about recording Discover New Hope. And if you remember, every Sunday morning, till we're blue in the face, we'd say, every member here needs to go through Discover New Hope. And many of you have. But mostly, I think people looked at it as it's just a different version of the membership class, and so I don't need to do it. I'm already a member. Technically, that's true. On the other hand, if you haven't been through it lately, it's packaged a little differently, and there is a little bit of information that is different. It's simplified in such a way that so when you came out of it, anyone who asked you questions about our church, you could answer them, or you could simply say, you need to go to Discover New Hope. So now that since the pandemic hit, it gave us motivation. I have recorded the whole Discover New Hope class in bite-sized chunks. And what I would like you to consider, will you do this for me? Will you do this for the sake of the gospel in our community? Will you go to first go to newhopekent.org, and we have a beautiful new website. Scroll down a little bit and you'll see a big block that says Discover New Hope. Click that, and then just click the link that says Start. That'll take you to a site that's run by Ministry Grid. That's the platform that is hosting us. And you're going to see it's more than just videos. There's a lot of information in the comments section. There are a lot of links. So if you're into theology, I talk about what our church believes theologically, but there are also lots of links that you can click to take you to actually study deeper. The more people that we have go through Discover New Hope, the more effective we're going to be when we are actually able to launch. And by effective, I mean effective at actually seeing the gospel of Jesus change and bless our community. Because that means more of us will be on the same page, more of us will be moving in the same direction. Now, what do we do in the intermediate time? In the intermediate time, basically, Samuel and I and several other folks will be working on basically smaller home-based worship groups. That's an intermediate step, but it's also an important step because if we're going to launch a big worship service at some point, which we will, the more you're connected to other people intimately, again, the more important the larger worship service is going to be, the greater the witness we will have in our community. Many of you have already volunteered to host those groups, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. So, all of that said, do you want a sermon teaser? I wasn't going to do one today, but I almost can't help myself. This week's sermon is based on Genesis chapter 3, a terrible lie. And I promise you, if you own the Jesus Storybook Bible, when I got to the second to last page of this week's story, I was just bawling. Why? Because there's a great line there after that talks about the fall of Adam and Eve, and it says, in any other story, this would be the end. And it's in big letters, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you turn the page, and what does it say? But not this story. This is a great week if you want to invite people or to share the sermon premiere when it's launched. So all of that said, I miss seeing you face to face. I love you and can't wait to see what happens with our church plant. God bless you.